Hey everyone, I hope you've had a great day so far and that you're doing well. For this video we'll be going through the last of the Wave 1 unboxing and reviews of Grimlock, and Grimlock is from the Wave 1 release of the AMK mini-series released by Yolopark. Maybe around 2023, give or take. It's definitely not a recent release. This will pretty much wrap up the Wave 1 series that I've been doing for the past few weeks. We started through some of the Decepticons and then have been going through the remaining Autobots pretty much right through to the end with Grimlock. So getting into it, here we have the front of the packaging with a nice shot of Grimlock in his alt mode, not his actual robot mode, but it does look very, very cool here. Very nice shot. On the side we have another shot of Grimlock, which I suspect is probably the same as this one, just on a different vertical axis. Back of the packaging, so we have a shot of Grimlock, but this is interesting because usually the previous releases have had Grimlock, the completed model, and then all the individual components to put them together, and then the actual full 6 lineup. So this could be, while still part of Wave 1, could be a slight repackaging of the collection. So there we have Grimlock anyway, and the previous kits that we've looked at so far, which actually look probably more like computer models because they look like they have more detailing. 3 Decepticons, Soundwave, Megatron, Starscream, the other 2 Autobots, Optimus and Bumblebee, which we've looked at before. At the end of this video, or close to the end, I'll get all 6 into frame. Anyway, that's the packaging side done. Time to look inside. Okay, and in terms of what was inside, so we have the usual manual, once again specific for Grimlock, so pretty much the same image that we've seen on the box already. So unlike the others, he's pretty much had the one image, just on different axes, or vertical axis. And on the back we do have a breakdown of the articulation, which, because he is in his alt mode, will definitely be less compared to the previous 5. Be interesting if they release him in a robot mode. I doubt it, but time will tell. I do have a feeling I really need to start getting into the Blokees range at some point. In terms of inside, putting him together is pretty straightforward. In fact, he's probably got the most easiest build of the entire 6 Wave 1 releases, which is to be expected. We'll have a quick look at the tray of pieces before putting him together. I may well just do a real-time assembly, just because he doesn't have too many pieces. And hopefully, because a lot of them aren't ball and socket, they might actually fit okay. Anyway, that was the manual. As for the tray, so here we have the tray here with all of Grimlock's components. Not a lot, pretty much head, main body, parts of the tail, the legs and his 2 arms. So definitely the easiest of the builds for sure. So I guess, given how much there is, why don't we just do it live? So one of his legs, his other leg. In fact, what I might do is just take everything out. Okay, that is everything out. In terms of putting everything together, well, let's see, can we do this in such a way that I also don't knock the camera? So the tail components will just push fit together. Nice snap there. Main body, connection point for the tail. In terms of the legs, it does feel a bit tight, but that's okay. I guess if I just do this a little bit, maybe that'll help. Okay, so that's pretty much the lower body done. As for his arms, all socket for his little T-Rex hands, which, there we go. Oh gosh, it's a very stiff joint. And there is the other. Just trying to see if I can loosen up the joint a little bit without accidentally like snapping the hands off or anything. So there's that, and then lastly his head, and then we'll close his jaw. Maybe not as much. Can we just do this a bit more? Not really, because obviously your tail is in the way. How about we just leave it at that? Okay, so that was the assembly of Grimlock in real time. So, what does Grimlock look like? So, Grimlock from the front, side angle, the back, the other side, and maybe we'll just do a quick 3/4 shot at an angle. So from general visual aesthetics, Grimlock is definitely looking very Grimlocky. He does have these paint apps with the very nice gold actually being used on his main grey body. We do have his Autobot insignia here, and there's a little bit of red here on some side piping as well. So overall, I mean, it's not going to be 100% color accurate, but they've definitely picked up some of the main colors. I mean, even his eyes are also in blue as well. So visually, you know, he's not a complete massive grey plastic. He does have some colors, and surprisingly, even this gold actually doesn't look too bad. Now, it probably doesn't look great on the video, but to be honest, it actually is a pleasant looking gold. So that is Grimlock, pretty much post-assembly, and just a quick look. Now, in terms of his articulation, so I mean, his head does do a full 360 like that. Would you ever do that? Probably not. Robot or not, that looks very painful. His jaw will basically move up and down like so. Would you close it that much? Probably not, because he does look really weird. So probably at least keep a little bit open, but obviously you can move them both up just to keep that nice visual representation that his mouth is partly ajar. Obviously just open up a bit more if you want to maybe simulate him doing a fire breath. Obviously the good thing is, I mean, he does have a little bit of rotation there, so you can still do some rotation at the neck within aesthetic reasons. So that's the head. The arms will, I mean, they probably could do a full 360 given they're ball and socket, but his actual legs are in the way. But, you know, they've still got a good amount of freedom at that joint. Now, as I pointed out during the build, these joints are very tight, so even with my little earlier of moving the arms around, it hasn't really loosened it too much. It's maybe a fraction of that tightness has gone, but definitely bear that in mind. But once again, I mean, at least he can still do some actual posing with his T-Rex hands. Unfortunately, you can't really put them together like so. Well, I guess he can do that like that and kind of look a little bit. He's in a bit of a thinking stance. In terms of the legs, so once again, they would have the potential to do a 360. However, his hands will get in the way. In terms of this little knee bend of sorts, so the leg will go all the way pretty much like that to the back, and we'll do a full extension like that. So you could do a full extension like that, like so, to basically have him completely off the ground as opposed to resting his tail on the ground. Otherwise you can obviously do it like that, but just make sure you move these forward a bit, and then obviously the tail here will pretty much just align with everything. Speaking of the tail, because it's just that little pin into the main body section, it can swivel around, but similar to the head, I mean, you could probably do a little bit here and there, but you obviously wouldn't be overly dramatic and do that, robot or not. That's that. So overall, it's got a little bit of articulation here and there, not too much, but what do you expect for a static T-Rex mode, I guess? Can we just do this a little bit so he can... Okay, there we go. So it doesn't seem as fiddly. I will admit, this does obviously give me a little bit of flashbacks back to, obviously, Generation 1 Grimlock, and at some point in time I will go through and do my Studio Series unboxings for the Dinobots. at some point. Anyway, that's pretty much Grimlock and his articulation and a quick look. Now, compared to the other Autobots, I guess we'll start reverse order. So there is Bumblebee. So they're about the same size, which obviously in the cartoon sense would definitely not be the case, but there you go with scale miniatures, I guess, well, models, not so much miniatures. But that's the two of them together, so that's definitely not too bad. I mean, obviously not that it looks good on the camera because of the angling. Yeah, it does look a little bit weird that they're the same height. So that is Bumblebee. Next, I guess we'll take the actual leader of the Autobots. So here we have Grimlock with Optimus. Now Optimus does look somewhat taller, which once again is not necessarily correct. Grimlock would have been much taller than Optimus in the cartoon, but it is what it is. But definitely not too bad. I mean, between Bumblebee, Grimlock and Optimus, I mean, they're pretty much some of the more well-known characters from G1. Okay, so those are the Autobot side of things, I guess, to compare with the Decepticons. So, kind of just like in reverse order of when I unbox them. Grimlock and Soundwave. Actually, Soundwave looks a little bit taller. How unusual. Grimlock and Starscream. Grimlock actually looks smaller than all the Decepticons. And then lastly, Grimlock and Megatron, who probably share the most similar color palette in the sense that at least they've got a primary grey. Although in saying that, I think Megatron probably has a slightly darker grey than Grimlock's grey. I wonder if I just put that out to the side there. Okay, so that is pretty much the Wave 1 releases for the AMK miniseries, with Grimlock being the last. Thoughts about Grimlock? All the points I've made about the entire series pretty much are stock standard. So everyone was bought individually, so at least that way I know I've got the full Wave 1 release, which is good. A little bit more expensive than the current blind boxes. The blind boxes obviously are cheaper, but you have those options of getting the two alternative repaints of these two, Nemesis Prime, and I never ended up checking to the Skywarp or Thundercracker. I'm leaning towards Skywarp. So obviously that was that, and because if you wanted each one individually, getting them as an individual release was probably the easier way. Blind box, obviously you would have the options of the alternative recolors, but because it's blind, you could easily get 3 Grimlocks, 10 Bumblebees, etc., depending how many you get. In saying that, the model kits actually aren't too bad in terms of sizing, so if you have a bit of time up your sleeve, you could easily take any duplicates and repaint them. Could convert this into a cliff jumper deco. Optimus, I mean, he's got about 16 different, okay, 16 is a slight exaggeration, but you could do Ultra Magnus, Shattered Glass, Nemesis, deactivate mode, etc. Soundwave, Sound Blaster, Starscream, the 3 original Seekers, Starscream, Skywarp, Thundercracker, the Rainmakers, Sunstorm, Acid Storm, I think, and I can't remember the third one. Obviously you can't do the Coneheads, but there were plenty of Seeker alternatives. Grimlock, G1 Grimlock, Shatterglass Grimlock, G2 Color Grimlock. Megatron is probably the only one where you'd actually struggle to do recolors, because he's probably one that's not been recolored too much. You could possibly like do an actual Megatron body with a Galvatron deco. Obviously that's happened in other Transformers series. Energon's probably a good example. So would Cybertron / Galaxy Force, where it's been the same Megatron, but it's just, well, same visual body with different colors. So the blind box may not necessarily be a bad thing. Also depends if you have time to like do painting. At least thankfully enough, you know, some of these, they're not too big. Grimlock's probably one of the weirder ones because he's little hefty little monkey dinosaur. So your mileage will vary, but it's obviously something to consider. Otherwise, any extras you can obviously sell, etc. So I guess that's, you know, the blind box versus the individual thing. Articulation, yeah, it's pretty okay for a model kit of its size. Obviously for this particular wave, the joints have always been a bit of a sore point, but it is what it is. You can still pull off some of the articulation, but some things you just need to be very mindful of. Grimlock, I would probably say, of the 6, because of the fact that he's in his alt mode, has the least amount of articulation options, so you're not going to get too much posing out of him. The others, at least because they're robot modes, you've got a bit more options up your sleeve. I've mentioned Wave 2 release is coming out soon, which is good. Will we ever see the rest of the other 4 Dinobots in this particular AMK miniseries? Probably not. I think if you want, like, as always, like if you want to have a collection of the 5, I think Blokees will be the way to go. But with that being said, as you know, everything pretty much still stands from the previous 5 videos in terms of articulation, some of the pros, some of the cons, etc. But I guess at the end of the day, it's nice to have the full Wave 1 release in all its glory. And in the earlier videos, obviously, I said I've got duplicates of Megatron and Starscream. So maybe I'll go into the blind boxes again. Time will tell. Yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely in no rush. And to be honest, after building, that is what I'm talking about. He does look very cool. Anyway, maybe I'll do a video about that later on. Feel free to put in a comment saying, yes, do a video on the Blokees Transformer kits, because that would be amazing. I will leave things there. It's definitely been a fun 6 weeks. What am I doing for Transformers next week? I have yet to decide. Very well could be an Optimus review, maybe. Time will definitely tell. With that being said, thank you for watching the video. Feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy the content. All of this does help support the channel. Extra content is on my Instagram, so feel free to have a look. Otherwise, there's also some stuff on the community tab on the channel as well. With that said, stay safe, take care, and I will catch you all in a excuse me, future video. See ya.